Hello everyone and welcome to my Blender tutorial. This time I will show you how to model this type of stairway using basic techniques, few modifiers and finally how to set materials to objects. So let's get started. Select the light bulb in the camera by pressing Shift and left mouse button. After that, press X to delete. Now click the cube, S to scale and Z to scale along the Z-axis. Repeat by pressing S and Y to scale along the Y-axis. Press G to grab and then X to move along the X-axis. As you can see on the top left corner, I am about to move it around 4 meters. Now we need an empty object as a center of our stairway and orientation for the modifiers. To add our first modifier, we have to click our object and then the wrench icon on the side panel. Add modifier and then select array. Remove relative offset and mark the object offset. As orientation for the modifier, select the empty object from the list. Now as you can see, we have a normal cube, instead the same object as we want. To fix this, press N to open the transform panel. This here is our scale properties. To see the results we have to do is to apply the scale. Ctrl+A, scale. Now we have 1.0 for all axis. Next thing to do, right-click on our object, set origin to 3D cursor. Our object from the center is disappeared, and now even if we increase the amount of the array modifier, nothing's happening. But if we rotate our empty along the Z-axis, boom, here's the magic. You can close the transform panel for now by pressing N and open again anytime in case you need it. Grab the empty object and move it along the Z-axis until you get the stairway height you need. After everything is correct adjusted, you can set any amount you like. In my case, 41 is enough, just to show you how it works. Let's jump to the second step, stair fence. Left-click to our object, press Tab to go in edit mode. Now press 3 for face selection and then select the top face of the object. Shift+S, cursor to selected. Change to object mode by pressing Tab and add a circle by pressing Shift+A. Scale it down with S, grab it with G, and press X to move along the X-axis. Press Tab for edit mode and then 1 for vertex selection. Press A to select all the vertices. E to extrude and Z to extrude along the Z-axis. To make our stair fence to look better, we are going to cut some loops. Ctrl+R, scroll up until you get 2 cuts, left-click and then right-click to exit the operation. Repeat this for the top and the bottom side. Now let's change the transformation point to individual origins. Press 3 for face selection and then Alt+Shift+left-click to choose the faces between the loops. S to scale up and repeat the same operations for the middle part. Once you're happy with the results, press Tab to go back in object mode and it's time to add our second modifier. Be sure that the fence pillar is selected, go to modifiers, select subdivision surface and set the levels of 2. Here's a trick how to scale the pillar down so it looks slimmer. Press S and the Shift+Z to exclude Z-axis. Perfect. Now press Tab to change in edit mode, press A to select all, then Shift plus D to duplicate. G to grab and X to move the duplicated pillar along the X-axis. You can press numpad 1 for better side view and positioning the pillar. Alright, now it's time to reset our cursor position by default, which is the world origin. To do this, press Shift plus C and now it should be exactly on the crossline between Y and X axis. To apply the same effect as our first object, the stairway, we have to set the origin to the 3D cursor. Right-click, Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. Open the Transform panel within to check the object scale. To avoid future issues, apply the scale as we did early with our stairway object. Ctrl plus A, Scale, now all the axes are by 1.0. Now by adding the array modifier, we are going to duplicate pair of pillars for every stair. Remove relative offset and mark object offset, select empty. When you click the stairway object, you can see that now we have the same modifier properties as our pillars, but with amount of 41 counts. Let's get back to our pillar object and increase the amount of the modifier to 41 as well. It looks perfect for now and it's time to create our last important object, the handrail. Select the first pillar and press Tab to go in edit mode. Press 1 to change vertex selection and now Alt plus left click to mark the whole loop cut. Shift plus S, cursor to selected. Tab to change in object mode and now Shift plus A, Mesh, Plane. To rotate it along the X-axis, press R and then X, type 90 and then enter. Scale it down by the Z-axis and then scale it again with S to get the similar scale as mine. Move it up a bit along the Z-axis and apply the scale with Ctrl plus A as we did for our stairs and pillars early. Now it's all by 1.0 in our transform panel. Let's change to edit mode by pressing Tab and add some cuts with Ctrl plus R and scrolling up. I think 4 cuts are enough. Select the angles by holding Shift and click on each of it. Let's bevel them by pressing Ctrl plus B and open the sub-menu on the left bottom corner. Select vertices and reduce the width amount until you get similar edges. Segments of 3 should be fine to get nice round angles. Press 2 to change edge selection and then the middle line of the top to mark and drag it up along the Z-axis. Now press 3 for face selection and mark all the faces by holding Shift and left click. Press X to open the delete menu and then select only faces. In case you did some mistake as I did, you can anytime press Ctrl plus Z to undo. Now press 2 for edge selection and mark all these lines by holding Shift and left click. X to open the delete menu, select edges. Change the view by pressing numpad 1, and while you are still in edit mode, press A to select all the edges. Shift plus D to duplicate, G to grab, and X to move along the X-axis. After we placed it right on the top of the pillar, you can change to object mode by pressing Tab. This is the origin point of our handrail object, set it by default. To bring the origin point in the center, as we did with the stair and pillar object, we have to right-click and select Origin to 3D Cursor, but first, we have to reset the cursor by pressing Shift plus C. It's time to add another modifier, which is called screw, and it's very useful to finish the handrail for our stairway. As an orientation for the screw modifier, go to Axis Object and select Empty below. Now, all we need to do is to adjust it a bit by increasing the screw height until we reach the last pillars. After we are happy with the result, let's check if everything seems correct. Seems the modifier did not match perfect on this area. To get rid of these tiny openings, go to Edit mode with Tab and press A to select all. G to grab and Z to move it down a bit by the Z-axis. Everything looks fine, but not perfect. If you have noticed, we have here some sharp corners, and it's because we have a low amount of mesh in our modifier. Just increase the steps by 64 in the modifier and render by 64 as well. Apply the modifier by opening the submenu and click Apply. Go to Edit mode, press 1 to change vertex selection, and left-click somewhere to deselect the whole mesh, then hold down, Alt plus Shift, and left-click around the first loops of the left and right handrail to mark them. Press E to extrude, Y to extrude along the Y-axis. While still the selection is marked, press F to fill with faces. Ctrl plus B to bevel the edges, then left-click to apply. To add some smooth shading, go to Mesh Properties, under Normals, mark the checkbox, Auto Smooth. Select the pillars, right-click, Shade Smooth, and Auto Smooth as well in the properties. One last step more, and we are finally ready with the modeling. Now we are going to add some tiny carpets. Select the stairway object and go to Edit Mode. Ctrl+R to loop cut and left-click to adjust a position, left-click again to apply. Repeat the same for the top side, scroll up or down to adjust the amount of cuts. While we are still in edit mode, press 3 and hold down Shift and left-click to select the faces we need. Alt+E to open the extrude menu, then select extrude faces along normals. Drag up, and you can press S to switch thickness, which allows you to extrude straight edges. You can check if it's on or off on the top left corner. We are finally done with the modeling, and our stairway with carpets looks fine for now. But the whole thing in gray seems a bit boring and not so satisfying, so let me show you how to add some colors as a final step. Switch to edit mode again by pressing tab and by holding shift and left click, select all the faces of our carpet. Be sure that you are in face selection mode, which can be selected by pressing 3. By the way, on the top left corner, you can see in which mode and which selection you are working actually. When you are in edit mode, pressing 1 is vertex selection, pressing 2, edge selection, and 3, face selection, which we are actually using for now to select all the sides of the carpet. Now with the selected faces, go to Material Properties, click on the plus, New. As a base color, you can take any color you want. In my case, I will take red for the carpets. Hold down Z and drag the mouse down to activate Material Preview. Then click Assign to apply the color. Now we have all 41 steps, from top to bottom, nice red carpets. Let's click the handrail while we are in object mode and select a color similar to wooden. For the pillars, we just can select the already existing brown color under the material list. For the stairs, we have two materials, red for the carpet and gray as a default material, which I am going to edit for the stairs. Let's add a plane object and scale it up, then extrude it in edit mode to create some background with walls and floor. You can hold Z and drag the mouse to right to switch solid mode. In edit mode, press 2 for edge selection, hold shift down and left click the two sides of the plane, then E to extrude the edges. Holding Z and dragging the mouse up brings you to render mode. And when you click on the render properties, there's some specific final adjustments, which are the key, how to tell Blender with how much resources and which settings it should render to get the image or the video we want. Without going into detail in this video about the property side panels which I use in the final steps, I'll leave a link in the description that leads you to a video explaining what they are for. That's all for the end of this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you learned something useful, and maybe you can even create a better model than this by your own idea.